Hello, and welcome once again to Family Historian. My name is Stephen Conti. Tonight we are going to explore old family legends and how to validate them. And I'm sure all of you out there have a story or two in your own genealogy. And joining me on tonight's show, I am very honored to have as my guest a young man named Patrick McDuffie. Patrick descends from many of the early Dutch settlers of New York and New Jersey. He is also a real family historian and a professional herb farmer, and his family abounds in old family legends. And we're going to learn about those legends tonight. And now let's welcome Patrick McDuffie. Patrick, welcome to my show.
Thank you for having me.
Great. It's so good to have you here. You know, your surname is very Irish sounding. Your whole name, Patrick McDuffie.
Yes.
But the ancestors that we're going to talk about are on your mother's side.
Correct.
Early Dutch settlers in New York and New Jersey. Give us the surnames that we will be talking about tonight.
So an Earl married a Van Houten, and later they married into the Bennets, and then the Van Ripers, and then the Burdans, and then the Hydes, which were my grandfather.
Right. That's your mother's maiden name.
Hyde, yes.
Right. And your family is very much into their Dutch heritage.
Yes.
And we do have a picture of Holly Hyde, who is the mother of Patrick as a small child in a Dutch outfit, Pennsylvania Dutch outfit.
Yep, nice Dutch garb.
Yes, how old was she in this picture?
I'm not sure how old she was. She'll probably be mad at me for using it.
Okay, but she's adorable, and she was a cover girl.
Yes, she was.
Right, okay. And her father, now this is where we get to the legend, because he was a legend in his own time. And you gave me a very wonderful compliment. Your grandpa, you said that I reminded you of him. What was his name?
His name was Cyrus Hyde.
Cyrus Hyde. And you said that I reminded you.
He was extremely outgoing.
Okay.
He was the kind of guy that if he'd stop you in the middle of ShopRite and stop you and take a piece of grass out of his pocket and start sanding your nails and introducing himself and bring you back to his farm. And
right.
He was always a wealth of knowledge, sharing it with everybody he came in contact with.
This is your maternal grandfather.
Correct.
Okay. Now, he was also a genealogist without even knowing it. He was an oral historian,
Yes.
a family historian, and he would impart these legends to you.
Yes, he would.
And we're going to talk about that first legend. We do have a photo of Cyrus Hyde in his younger days, a very handsome man. I wish I looked like your grandpa. Very handsome guy. And he's holding something in his hand. This is the legend. What is that he's holding in his hand?
That is George Washington's silver knee buckle, which was gifted to my ancestors for giving them herbs and medicine during the Revolutionary War.
So this was the oral tradition, or the rumor, or
Yes.
what we call tales in the kitchen. I taught you that one. Or yarns. We've heard that before. Did you believe it when you first heard this, or did you think it was an old wives' tale that your ancestors brought down to you?
No, it was always very believable, and it's been in my family for a long time, and my grandfather has been very involved in the history of our family since he was a young
Right.
guy as well.
He was a great oral historian.
Yes.
Okay. And we have on the set, I'm very nervous right now. This is in one of your, what do you call this?
This is a crock.
A crock. Okay, here we go. Oh, we have it right here. This is the actual knee buckle.
Yes.
That belonged to old George Washington. Okay, and was given to the Van Houten family, which is your ancestors.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we have to validate this. You know, you hear these rumors, but you have to validate them so they're not rumors anymore. And Patrick will tell you the tools that he did use for that. And I'm going to follow my notes here. Your family has been in America since when? The early, what century?
At least the early 1700s.
Right, okay. in Bergen and Passaic counties.
That I know of, yes.
Right, okay. Now, the legend centers around the knee buckle, and this is what Cyrus Hyde told to his grandson. Who is the person who received this? Tell us the story behind this.
So my grandfather was big on the oral tradition. He didn't
Right.
do much reading or writing. He could a little bit, but really it was about the oral tradition.
Right, right.
And it was a lot of pet names that got passed down through the ages. So he would call her Clara van Houten.
Clara, okay.
And but through the history that we're going to dig up in just a second, we can find out that she also went by the nickname Katie or Katie Earl.
Right, okay. And now we do have some information on here from an old prayer book. I do
Yes.
want to interject something to my viewers here. Many people think that old family Bibles are the only ones that contain genealogical information. No. Prayer books, these were very popular in the early days, and they belong to each individual ancestor. And there is genealogical information in the prayer book, and we're going to show it to you right now on the ancestress of Patrick McDuffie, and her name again is?
She was known as Katie Earl, or Clara van Houten is what her married name was.
Right, names changed around a lot in those days. But she married into the Van Houten family.
Correct.
Okay. All right, now this is an entry from one of the prayer books. If you could read that for our viewers.
It says, Katie Earl and John van Houten was married in the year 1788, December the 21st.
All right, so that's our first clue. And she is the person to have received the buckle from George Washington. Okay. Why did she receive it? Tell us the story about that.
So, just from some puzzle pieces, she must have been in the house sometime before then, and must have had a relationship with that family before then. And she was just very good at using herbs and medicine. They didn't call themselves herbalists back then. They just called it doing medicine. And the Dutch were very good at, knowing what herbs to source.
Right. And you inherited that from her because you are an herb specialist.
Yes.
I went on a tour of Patrick's farm in Warren County, a lovely farm, and we'll highlight that at the end of our show, the Well Sweep farm, and you have all kinds of herbs there.
One of the largest collections in the world.
You don't have to go to a drugstore. It's all there. It's all from the earth, the old and this is what they did in the olden days. And your ancestor, Clara or Kate or Caddy, was proficient in this.
Yes.
I see. Now, let's get to the validation. You have to do really detective work, which my fine guest Patrick has done, to validate this rumor or this tale in the kitchen. And we're going to look at this very large book here. It's the history of Bergen and Passaic counties, where the Van Houten family lived, in Totowa, I believe.
Yes,
Totowa,
in
okay.
Totowa.
All right, and can you read the passage here that connects this family legend?
So on October 9th of 1780, George Washington was in Totowa, where he remained for 6 weeks, and he was quartered in a fine brick house still standing a mile or two west from Paterson, in what was known as the Hagenkamp House, although he occasionally passed a night with some of the Van Houtens of Totowa.
Okay, and that's where this interaction took place.
Yes.
She gave him herbs back in 1780, and he in return gave her a knee buckle.
Yes.
Isn't that something? And we have it right here tonight. So this is your own personal family heirloom.
Yes, supposedly he left two, but the other one must have gone with another part of the family and was lost in a fire.
Right, right. Or maybe some distant cousin that you don't know has it
Correct.
in his or her possession. Now, we do have some photos of the Van Houten homestead, which is still standing in Totowa, Passaic County, New Jersey. And around what year do you think this house was built?
It was built sometime in the 1700s, though they did many additions to it in the 1800s.
Right.
And I don't know that it's still standing anymore.
Okay.
My grandfather did some newspaper articles and some history on it when he moved, because I think that they wanted to make some renovations to the area.
I see. Now, you also told me that many of the family heirlooms and pieces of furniture are in the Dye Mansion. Is that correct?
That's correct. A lot of our antiques date back to at least the 1800s, if not earlier. And my grandfather had a relationship with the Dye Mansion, and he lent out several pieces that they switch in and switch out depending on what they're trying to dictate.
Well, the Dye Mansion is very lucky to have known a man like your grandpa.
Yeah.
Very, very lucky, yes. And you also have, and this is still in your possession, a cauldron, a real cauldron that your ancestor used.
Yes, that's probably older than most of the antiques that are found in the Dye Mansion. The cauldron was definitely passed down. It was mostly a female tradition.
Yes.
Great-great-great-great-grandmother to grandmother to grandmother. And then my grandfather finally broke that tradition, and myself as well.
Right, right. And where is this? Can you tell us where the cauldron is now?
It hangs in my grandmother and grandfather's house in Port Murray, New Jersey now.
On the farm?
Yep.
But it was too darn heavy to bring here.
Yeah.
You wanted to.
I wanted to, but...
But I didn't want to impose on my guest that way. So we saw the validation. So when you hear a family rumor, a tale in the kitchen, you have to use printed sources. Now, Patrick did use primary sources. In genealogy, we use a primary source, which are these books. How old are these books, these prayer books?
They are dated for 1780 is the earliest date that I've seen in there.
And these you inherited yourself?
Yes.
Your grandfather gave you these?
Yes.
Wonderful. Does your family have a family Bible? Is there a family Bible?
There was a family Bible, a big one.
Yeah.
That had some other dates in it and some pictures, but that was more from the 1800s. These are much older than that family Bible was.
So if you're lucky to have an heirloom, a family heirloom like these prayer books right here, these are primary sources that genealogists use. This holds up in court, okay? Now this book here, The History of Bergen and Passaic Counties, although I have heard many of them are full of inaccuracies sometimes, but not in your case, I'm sure. But this is the secondary source, the printed source. Okay. So what would you tell people who have heard these rumors in their family? Like, you know, there's a castle in the family, we have a skeleton in the closet, we descend from Abraham Lincoln. Do you tell them to pursue that and really ask questions? What would you tell a person like that?
To keep it going, write it down if they can. Maybe get on your show.
Yeah, okay, right.
But keep digging and get a DNA test. Start doing as much digging as you can. There's a lot of sources out there that I've found.
Yes.
I'm still digging.
Yes, yes. I know. Now, you call yourself a family historian. You're not a genealogist, but I think I'm going to turn you into one.
Yeah.
We do all the paperwork, you see. But you do more of the oral history. So there is a difference between a historian, a family historian, and a genealogist. I'm the genie.
Okay.
Okay, I'm the genie. Okay. I do the validation of all of this. Now, you have something very unusual. You are the first person I know that has a calico cat. All calico cats are females. Males are very, very rare and very expensive, because I have a calico cat myself, a female, of course.
Okay.
But your calico cat, or cats, descend from... Cats also have a genealogy at the farm, okay?
Yep.
How far back does the genealogy go of your calico cat?
So the story is that the cats go all the way back to Caddy herself, and that we've had a calico matriarch, you could say, in the family since that long. my grandfather's always kept a calico, and that tradition was taught to him by his mother and grandmother. So we always keep one calico, and she births many a kitten, and when she births a new calico, we always keep that one and keep the tradition going.
Isn't that something? And we do have a photo of your great-grandma. Her
Correct.
name was?
Her name was Elida.
Elida, okay, holding a calico kitten.
Yes.
And that kitten would be the ancestor of the present-day
Right.
cats.
Present-day Cora is the new matriarch.
Cora, isn't that something?
Yes.
That is really something.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have on the farm something very unusual in the way of chickens.
Yes.
Can you tell our viewers about that kind of genealogy?
This is another thing that I've inherited from my grandfather. He
Yes,
was, as you
yes.
said, a legend in his own time.
Yes.
He just passed, so I've recently inherited all these things, and I guess in passing he became a legend.
Yes.
And one of his other hobbies is a rare type of Japanese chicken called onagadori, which he inherited from a famous breeder, and he inherited from a famous breeder, his father who was a famous breeder, and so it's been passed down not within my own family,
Yeah.
but within the U.S., and my grandfather then spread the onagadori all over the U.S., where they sometimes get interchanged with the word phoenix. I'm not going to get into the details about the naming
Right.
of them right now,
Right.
but I now breed the chickens myself and sell them all over the country.
Isn't that wonderful? And we do have a photo of Patrick McDuffie with one of the very proud and macho roosters with his feathers. Okay.
Yes.
And speaking of inheriting from your wonderful grandfather, who I regret never meeting in my lifetime, you did inherit something right here. Can you explain what this is? A walking stick.
This is a Dutch hex cane or walking stick, and if you were lucky enough to go on one of his tours, he would always be carrying one of his walking sticks. He would grab a
Yes, yes.
native to New Jersey herb. He'd pull it out of his pocket. This is horsetail grass or equisetum, and it pulls quartz crystals out of the ground and into the ridges. And he would sand your nails, or he might sand a piece of wood and show you how this puts a nice patina on the wood. You want to feel
Isn't
that?
that wonderful? Yes,
there you go.
yes. And there's a snake around there.
Yes. 7 rings for good luck.
Isn't that something? So your family was very much into nature.
Yes.
Were any of them, pardon me, were any of them ever accused of witchcraft?
Not that I know.
Because you have
of.
that cauldron.
They were very involved in the Dutch Reformed Church, so I'm sure that if
Right.
there was any of that tradition, it was very hush-hush.
Right, right. And the Dutch are very much into these things, I believe. And you are very much into your Dutch heritage.
Yes.
And we do have something else on the set right in front here. It's some kind of a horn. Was this manufactured by your? This is a genealogical source. We call it a three-dimensional archive. Okay.
So because my grandfather was so involved in the history, he had a friend of his carve our family's journey.
Can you grab that?
Yeah,
Sure. Sure.
From the Hudson River.
Okay.
Maybe I can put it right here.
Yeah.
From the Hudson River all the way to Totowa, then to Waterloo Village, which is another place that he told a lot of history before he started his own farm, all the way to Port Murray, where he started his own farm back in 1969.
So on this horn, it shows the migration of your family.
Yes.
You began in the Netherlands in
Yes.
the 1600s.
And then we came to the Hudson River.
Right. So you must have been in that New Amsterdam area when you first came to America, which
Sure.
is now New York.
Yes.
And then they all came down here with the Dutch families. Very good. Before we close, I do want to mention the Well Sweep Herb Farm. I don't know of any other herb farm in New Jersey. First of all, what is the derivation of that word well sweep?
Well sweep. So we have a little picture reference right here. We can show the camera.
Yeah.
It was an old-fashioned bucket for sweeping the water out of the well.
I see.
I have to correct many a person on what that word actually is.
And that was invented by the name was invented by
Yes,
your
on
grandfather.
our farm we have an old-fashioned well sweep. When he bought the property, that was there. It still stands today, and that's what the farm was named after.
I see. And the farm has been there since?
1969.
And what did your grandfather do before he founded the farm? What did he?
Before he founded the farm, he gave herb walks at Waterloo Village, and before that he was a milkman. But he knew how to collect herbs off the side of the road as he was taught by his mother and his grandmother. And as he would do that more and more often, by the 60s, people wanted more of these herbs, and he started an entire business off of it.
Right, and I've been to your farm, and you must all go to that farm. It's another world. You forget about all the problems of the world nowadays by going to the Wellsweep Herb Farm in Port Murray, Warren County, New Jersey. And if you're lucky enough, you'll see, well, Patrick, you're always there.
Pretty much, yep.
And you give tours. He gave me a wonderful tour of the herbs. I think I even bought Edelweiss from you. You had some unusual things.
Yes, we like antique or really funky, unusual stuff.
And the most unusual and valuable, here's another genealogy of a plant. It's that huge tree in the greenhouse. Tell our viewers what that tree is.
That is a frankincense tree. And
Frankincense.
it's probably the oldest frankincense tree in the country that I'm aware of. And the Sultan of Yemen gave the Brooklyn Botanical Garden several pieces back in the 70s. They dispersed those pieces to the best growers they know, my grandfather being one of them. He was one of the only people to get that piece to root. So we have a still standing frankincense tree in our greenhouse, which dates back to 1970-something.
But the tree itself has an ancestry. The tree itself.
Yes, goes all the way back to Yemen.
Right, to Yemen, okay? And frankincense was one of the gifts they brought to the baby Jesus.
Yes, and not just because it smells good, but also because it's a highly medicinal herb.
Very good, very good. Well, this has been a wonderful interview about old family legends. If you have a family legend, pursue it. As Patrick McDuffie has mentioned, do the research, ask questions. I know as a young boy, I used to ask my grandfather, I badgered him with questions, as you did with your own grandpa. And this is wonderful that I love seeing young people interested in family history and genealogy. So come back again and we'll talk about another topic with Patrick McDuffie and visit his farm. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you, Stephen.
And on that note, as I have been saying, by the way, today is my 34th year on the air, February 9, 2022.
Yes.
34 years ago today, I premiered Family Historian, and we're still here. Okay, great. And on that note, as I say every time I'm here, remember, we are all descendants of ancient civilizations. Genealogy is your key to the history of your family. And so until next time, this is Stephen Conti wishing you the very best of luck in your research, and above all, happy ancestor hunting. Good night.